the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
Caleb Williams is once again being called out, this time by some more former Bears coaches. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. So, Bears fans, as you can see, I am finally back in my studio. I know there's a lot of you guys that were commenting on some past videos saying, hey, Keek, why are you not in your studio? My studio was just being updated with a couple of things, new camera, new microphones, all that good stuff. But I am finally back in my home studio, and it feels so good to be back. And Bears fans, this is going to be a very loaded show today with just multiple different updates in regard to maybe some free agency rumors, and also our quarterback Caleb Williams going into year 2 being called out by some more former Bears coaches. Of course, there is no names listed on what coaches were actually calling out Caleb Williams. Of course, we talked about Matt Eberflus going in an interview and, basically holding a stance firm, saying that, basically, hey, we watched Caleb Williams do film and all that good stuff. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole once again. But Jeremy Fowler of ESPN actually talked to many different people around the league. And there were some former Bears coaches that were on the roster during Caleb Williams' rookie season that were not too pleased or thrilled with the fact that Caleb Williams basically threw them under the bus for last season's, failures. This is what Jeremy Fowler of ESPN had to say about the situation, Bears fans. He said, football maturity is going to be a big thing for him, Fowler said. League-wide, talking to other teams who are watching it closely because the ability is massive, but how does he comport himself on the field? The Bears have already been working with him on body language, how you're handling yourself in the huddle, on the sidelines when a play doesn't go right, and the word out of Chicago is he's handling himself well there. Now, some of the previous Bears coaches were not overly thrilled. I was told that he made public that he was watching film by himself. They felt like he could have handled that a little better from an accountability standpoint. So those are all things people are watching, but word is this offseason he's been great, really taking to Ben Johnson's hard, aggressive coaching. And Bears fans, this is one of those things that I really didn't want to go back to, but I did find it quite interesting that there was yet more coaches that weren't overly thrilled that they were called out. And this is the one thing that I would have to say to those former Bears coaches. Tough luck, get a helmet. Life's tough sometimes. Do better next time. I think Caleb Williams he's right in the feelings that he had in regard to, yes, it was tough during his rookie season. Could he have handled it a little better? Could his body language been better in his rookie season? Absolutely. But when you feel like you were alone, and that's how I kind of took this whole thing, that Caleb Williams in his rookie season felt alone. No one was really helping him besides probably his veteran teammates really trying to get better. It was probably a really frustrating situation to be in. And obviously, like we've been talking about many different times here on the podcast, Caleb Williams has made every strive possible to get better this offseason. And obviously, with Ben Johnson now in the fold, really giving that aggressive, hard coaching, I think that's exactly what Caleb Williams was wanting. He didn't receive that from Matt Eberflus. He didn't receive that from Shane Waldron. Obviously, Thomas Brown did his absolute best to give Caleb Williams that tough coaching as well. But at that point, it was a little bit too late. So I think that's why Caleb Williams really came out and said, you know what? I just needed more help. And that's something that the last coaching staff did not offer Caleb Williams. I think they're just trying to, save their own ass in regard to, maintaining a good reputation and hopefully making up the ranks in their coaching career within the National Football League. But once again, they can also take accountability as well, much as Caleb Williams can take accountability in some things as well. But I think as coaches, they just need to, say, hey, it was a failure there in Chicago. We could have probably done more with Caleb Williams, but now we move on, and hopefully we can get better from that experience and basically that failures that we put Caleb Williams in his first season with the Chicago Bears. So Bears fans, give me your initial reaction. I know we've talked about it many different times, but once again, I find it quite interesting that these coaches keep coming out and I guess trying to put Caleb Williams on blast. So give me your initial reaction down below in the comment section, because I definitely find it quite hilarious. So Bears fans, there's also another update in regard to some free agency news. Obviously the other day, we talked about the Bears being linked to Sedarius Smith, which I feel like that would be an outstanding pickup for not only the Chicago Bears as a whole, but obviously the Chicago Bears defense under new DC Dennis Allen. We talked about Sedarius Smith. He turned 33 in September, 6'4", 275. Last year had 9 sacks with 63 total pressures. And once again, he's played for every other team besides the Chicago Bears. I think this would be an outstanding pickup to pair with Montez Sweat with what we already done in the offseason by adding Grady Jarrett, obviously adding Dayo Odeyingbo as well. But we still need one more edge rusher to pair with Montez Sweat, and I think Sedarius Smith would be a very good fit for the Chicago Bears. But now Jeremy Fowler of ESPN is also linking 2 other names to the Chicago Bears prior to start of training camp here in a couple of weeks. And one of those players is Matthew Judon, the edge rusher that played with the Atlanta Falcons last year. And then Jamal Williams, the running back that is 30 years old as well. Played with Ben Johnson back in 2021 and 2022 with the Detroit Lions. So let's go ahead and talk about both of these guys really quick on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. I just want to give you guys my quick opinion on if I feel like it's a good fit for the Chicago Bears as a whole. First and foremost, when you're looking at Matthew Judon, he also turns 33 in August, much like Sedarius Smith. Stands at 6'3", 261 pounds, had 5.5 sacks last year and only 25 total pressures with the Atlanta Falcons. And when you really look at Matthew Judon, the interesting part about this situation is that Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears were actually all in on Matthew Judon last offseason. You saw that on the Hard Knocks episodes as well. But obviously they missed out because the Atlanta Falcons, or at least he chose to go to the Atlanta Falcons after, his stint with the New England Patriots. So I definitely think that Ryan Poles and the Bears would possibly be interested in maybe adding Matthew Judon once again. You do have to understand that he did suffer a season-ending injury, which was a torn bicep back in 2023. So now he's officially a year removed from that injury. And he's also showed his discomfort with staying with the Atlanta Falcons. He's now a free agent. He was once trying to work out a deal with the Falcons, but he says that it's just not really the right fit over there in Atlanta. They said that they dropped him back on 60% of his pass rush snaps. So they had him more in coverage, which I think that's why his numbers weren't as good as, what you saw in 2021 and 2022 with the Patriots, where he had 12.5 sacks and 15.5 sacks in back-to-back seasons. So maybe the Chicago Bears will be interested once again. They bring over Matthew Judon as yet another, veteran presence that can be good on and off the field, gives Montez Sweat a true running mate. I think he's out to prove everyone wrong because, after him going to the Atlanta Falcons, only having 5.5 sacks. I think there's a lot of people out there, kind of counting Matthew Judon out, just due to the fact that, after his season and the injury, he came back and didn't really produce. But once again, if it wasn't a good fit and they weren't using him correctly with the Atlanta Falcons, maybe Dennis Allen here in Chicago would have a better plan for him. He is not that every down player that he once was, but I still think it would be a solid addition to add with Montez Sweat and Grady Jarrett on this defensive line. So much like Sedarius Smith, I think it would be a good pickup. If I had to choose between Matthew Judon and Sedarius Smith, I would definitely still go with Sedarius Smith because I still think that he's producing a little bit better, but at the same time, I think Matthew Judon is a very good pass rusher as well. So Bears fans, in regard to the edge rusher position here in Chicago, if you had your choice between Matthew Judon and Sedarius Smith, which one would you want Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears to choose? Let me know down below in the comment section, but I would definitely choose Sedarius Smith over Matthew Judon. Now moving on to running back Jamal Williams. This one's interesting. He's 30 years old, stands 6 foot, 201 pounds. I think the only reason why this makes so much sense is because his connection with Ben Johnson. It would be a seamless fit within the Chicago Bears offense. And people forget, and I know this was a couple of years ago now, and he's kind of had some down years with some injuries and not really getting a lot of playing time in his last couple of years in the National Football League. But back in 2022, in Detroit, with Ben Johnson as his offensive coordinator, he had 262 carries for over 1,000 rushing yards, with 1,066 rushing yards to be exact, and 17 rushing touchdowns. So I'm not saying they're going to get him back to that, but I still think maybe he would be a good compliment, knows what Ben Johnson's trying to accomplish here in Chicago, which is running the football effectively to really help Caleb Williams take the next level, get the play action game going. So maybe he would be a good addition with what we already have and what DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai, add Jamal Williams, maybe for training camp competition. I think he would be cheap at this point. So I don't see anything wrong with the Chicago Bears trying to add Jamal Williams and maybe a Matthew Judon or Shadarius Smith. I think those would be welcome additions, not just in regard to having more veteran leadership in the locker room, but maybe some guys that still have some gas left in the tank as well. So Bears fans, let me know down below in the comment section if you guys would be okay with any of these additions in Matthew Judon, Jamal Williams, or Shadarius Smith, because I think it definitely would be a welcome addition prior to the start of training camp. But other than that, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears that you know. But other than that, be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.